Hello, everyone.
Hello,
Hello. Hello, it's Bernadette Gillick. Thank you so much for doing this. Looking forward.
thank you.
Thank you. Now, would someone be able to do a recording of this session? One of the leaders?
I think the recording has already started.
Wonderful. That's great. So I will be in the wings if you need me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone that has joined in on this call. We're very, very happy to host this session as part of the broader meet for the International Alliance of the Academies of Childhood Disabilities. So we are EACD, which is the Eastern Africa Academy of Childhood Disabilities. And the topic that we're hoping to discuss today, bringing in some great panelists with lived experiences, is looking into what challenges, opportunities for intervention, what support pathways exist, and what insights can we learn about thriving in adulthood, and mainly focusing on the transitional journey that persons with lived experiences or persons who are closely affiliated to or connected to persons with disabilities, making that transition from childhood to teens to adulthood. And we just want to hear their stories, gather the insights from them, see what ways we can plug in and understand better the lived experiences of persons with disabilities as well. So my name is Keto Yeke. I'm a pediatric neurologist and the vice chair of the Eastern Africa Academy of Childhood Disabilities. I'm joined by Perpetua and Dr. Susan Wamithi and Eva Naputuni, who are also members. Susan is our chair, the chairperson of the Eastern Africa Academy of Personal Childhood Disabilities. And we were going to just start with a small brief about our organization and then dive right into it so that we don't eat into the panelists' times. Thank you. So I've already talked about what the International Alliance of Academies is doing and what the role of the EACD is. We're a professional consortium of experts and persons with lived experiences with a vested interest in the diagnosis and treatment of childhood disabilities. Our organization was established in 2015, and we are dedicated to enhancing the health outcomes of children suffering from disabilities. And our mission, obviously, is to promote research, education, best practices in the field of childhood disability, bringing together leading healthcare professionals and researchers from across Eastern Africa. And you'll see that our panel, at least some of our panel discussion members, are from beyond Kenya as well for innovation and collaboration. Our membership comprises individuals from Tanzania, Burundi, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Kenya, Rwanda, Sudan, Somalia, South Sudan, Tanzania, Congo, Malawi, and Djibouti. And there is our email because we're also driving to increase our membership, gather more representation, get those voices heard, come to the fore, champion for children with disabilities. And so you can contact us via email at membership@eacdafrica.org. Thank you so much. Right, and this is our leadership. That's myself in the center. That's Dr. Susan Wamithi right at the top left. Eva Naputuni, Perpetua, who's been talking to us right from the beginning, Dr. Sylvia Mochabo, and Andrew Kassiani. Thank you very much for that. So without further ado, we have 5 panelists who will be sharing their personal journeys. We're hoping to use the limited time that we have. So allow the first speaker, and that was Brian Dungu, to get started. Thank you very much.
Hello, I hope you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Okay, I want to turn my video on. Huh? Yes, I hope you can all see me, right?
We see you and we hear you.
Okay, that's in order. So my name is Sami Brayo. I'm a Christian, fearfully and wonderfully made in God's unique design to create a life and legacy, pointing others to Christ through my music and sharing of God's word. So basically, I was born with no arms, and I operate mostly with my feet, but that has not limited me. What do I mean? I'm a musician, a content creator, motivational speaker. I am an artist. I hope you can see my artwork behind the scene. And also, definitely, I'm a chess player. Just mention about a few. So if I just give you a brief history about my journey, my life journey, being born with no arms was not easy at all, because when my mom gave birth to me, this was the story she was giving me because I was a young kid. When the doctors, when my mom received me from the doctors, first of all, the doctors told her, your son has an issue. But then she wondered, what issue does your son have? So my mom took me, she unwrapped me completely, and then she saw a kid with no arms. So from then on, when she was telling me, she cried, she wondered how life is going to be. And then life went on. My relatives continued encouraging her that life is going to be good day by day, day by day. And God gave her strength. So we proceeded, we continued. And me as a young man growing up, I've never seen myself different. It was the society which made me feel different. When kids were passing around, they're saying this kid who doesn't have arms and all. And I was crying so much. But then I thank God for a supportive family and friends who kept on telling me, Sam, you're like us, so don't give up. So I came to accept myself at a very young age. And when I accepted myself, now the community and my mom also accepted me and my family. So joining school, I've never gone to any special school since I was a young kid. I've gone to normal schools. But joining was not easy because there are many doors we knocked for me to be accommodated. But it was not easy because they were saying because of Sami's condition, you cannot accommodate him. I thank God for a teacher called Mrs. Kiru, who gave me a chance at kindergarten. And I brought my special desk and my special chair, and I joined kindergarten. And kids looked at me, they wondered, how kids are, they're curious, touching me and all. So I proceeded, they saw me writing with my feet, I was given crayons, and I managed. And day by day, I continued inspiring the kids. However, they were so curious about my life. I joined primary school. The journey was not different. It was the same because even in primary school, being accommodated was not an easy task because, I've learned in public school. So learning there and teachers wondering how I'll cope with other students, you understand? So it was not easy, but then I kept on pushing and I kept on moving. And in primary school, I did well. I was accommodated, and I thank God for a teacher called Mrs. Kinothia, who gave me that chance, and I did well, and I passed my exams. I continued, and then I cleared. I went to high school. High school, the journey was not different. We had to fight so much for me to be accommodated, and eventually I overcame the challenge. In high school, I had to introduce a personal assistant who assisted me in one or two tasks. Not like other students were not assisting me, but in high school, we have things like practicals and all. So we had to bring in somebody else to do some special things for me whenever I needed assistance. And that's how my journey has been. And then I cleared high school, I passed well, I joined college, I've done mass communication, journalism, and I'm currently doing my internship also. So, and I'm also currently studying counseling psychology. So that's how my journey has been. It has not been an easy ride, but I thank God for his grace. And just touching some points on today's conversation, I could just mention about maybe the challenges I've gone through, like not being accommodated in schools because of my condition. So having to fight a lot for me to be accommodated, that has been, I think I've gone through. Stigma and discrimination, meaning there's some people who are looking at me and some people maybe trying to avoid me. I've gone through all that and I've cried. I remember sometimes going back home and asking my mom, why are kids running away? Like in school, I had a friend and you come who used to see me and run away. And I really wondered why. I'm just like you. Having no arms, doesn't mean I'm any different. I'm just like you. So those are the things I've gone through. And also, basically, there's some buildings I've gone because probably For those who have not seen me, I was born with no arms, and one leg is longer than the other. So sometimes accessing buildings which have things like stairs are quite challenging. Yes, sometimes I manage to go through, but it takes a lot because there's some buildings you'll access, but not all buildings you'll have which have ramps or lifts or something. So there are some which I'm forced to climb. Yes, I climb, but sometimes they are a challenge. Definitely. And then speaking about my life, I thank God for a supportive mom and a supportive family and friends who have really helped me to reach where I am today. Because as a PWD, I can say support is very, very essential in your life. If you don't have people who are supporting you, then I think even the world will find it a bit difficult to support you because, as I usually say, charity always begins at home. So support, I thank God for supportive mom, supportive family and friends, and supportive people who have supported me since I was a young kid up to date. The other thing, if I could just continue with my story and touch on the topics which I can say here is definitely, and empowerment also of PWD. For me, I think it's a very huge something which needs to happen. Sometimes when I walk in town, people stare at me. And sometimes when people stare at me, one thing I can speak about empowerment is they don't stare because they wonder, because I believe there are some people who have not encountered disabilities. So some people, when they stare at you in town, maybe they have not seen somebody like you. So I believe when I speak about empowerment, I speak like PWDs should come out more and they need to be seen more so that even if people are going to stare at them, they're going to stare at them maybe like, yeah, I've seen you, but not like that staring, like they're staring at you, kabisa, kabisa, until you leave whenever you're going. So for me, that's what I can speak about empowering persons with disability. And also PWDs should get leadership roles, you understand? And those who are there in government should speak more about PWDs. They should prepare for us more. And I believe you're going to be in a good space. Apart from that, basically, as I conclude, maybe, and if you have questions, you're going to let me know. I'm a motivational speaker. I'm also a fit artist. I draw the leg. So every day inspiring people and showing them that disability is not inability anyway. Every day. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that inspiring story. So many highlights of your talk: limited access to education, accessibility challenges, stigma and discrimination, infrastructure being a big challenge that we have, and the names and the faces that really stood out for you and stuck with you actually stand out, and they live in your memory. So that kudos to that teacher who permitted for your desk to be made in a way that allowed you to participate in learning. And it's small things like those. We think of change needing to come from the top to down, but actually the necessity is what drives the interventions. And it's these voices, it's these stories that get the story out. It's the visibility. So thank you so much for your valiant efforts and your bravery in coming and discussing with us your personal life. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We shall move next to Nicholas. I'll ask him to introduce himself. Nicholas, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nicholas Dongo, and I'm very humbled to be here in this great conference. And once again, I'm Nicholas Dongo Irongo. I'm neuro inclusion champion, youth neuro inclusion champion, and I'm an advocate. Also, I'm dyslexic. I'm in spectrum also, and my journey has been ups and downs, but in the end, it has been good. Why? Because if people do not understand, you show them how they can learn, so they can improve themselves. So in school, in the normal school, teachers and students, they do not understand. That time I was really, really young. And before that, even when I was born, the doctor says that the child will be delayed, he will be backwards than the other the other peers, like my peers at that time. So my mom said, no, it cannot be. And she did not understand what is going on with me. So she tried to look for answers, went to KISE, the Kenya Institute of Special Education, looking for answers, and also got some answers, says that he needs to be assessed. And they guide my mom to to National Council of Persons with Disability, and I was assessed there, and they told my mom, that's what my mom told me, that I need to speak few languages because in my assessment card says that I have intellectual, so I have to use basic words, like use English all the time, repeat every time, and yeah, so even I delayed in speech and walking and reading and writing. So after going to school, my first time in school, just like how the teachers and students do not understand, so it myself to feel like I'm useless because I cannot read and write like other peers at my age that time. Me, a bit older or my age. So I feel less confident. I was not proud of myself. Every time the teachers want to teach me, but they cannot teach me, they have to use another way than not to teach me by rubbing a board. So afterwards, they just left me be, just like that. Even the teachers of sign language also, I remember he tried to teach me sign language. I don't know how to spell. So every teacher, mathematics, English, every teacher, they say this child cannot do the way the other kids can do. They told my mom to take me to another school so I can maybe be helped there. Yeah, they think I'm mad or something. But one thing about that normal
Hebu
school,
ingia hii room
they
niingie. Wacha nikuodie.
sorry about that. About that school, one thing I like about school is that they do not chase me like you get out. No, no, no. They told my mom to look for a school, and as I look for school, I go to music practice. So that time I started to learn music when I'm good in music. Because of that time, I got interested in that. So when my mom tried to look for other schools, it was very difficult, like extremely very difficult to look. Everywhere she goes, she was rejected. Every time she takes me there, every teacher's no, he cannot accept the child because he cannot perform like other students because that schools they need to have a child who can perform very well. So finally, my mom looked for a special needs school. Actually, there are two special needs schools, and one it was too far, and it needs where somewhere is closer, and the other one is closer. At least it was better. So before I entered to the school, they assessed me. They know who I am. Then when I entered, the other students they are the same as me, so I cannot feel less confident or feel depressed or something or mad at myself because why I cannot do like other students. So at least the school taught me a lot. They taught me a lot. Even they taught my mom how to do those things so I can improve. So when the days comes on, well, I was 9 years. I was being called in a TV station to give my experience as dyslexic youth. That time, my mom did not know it was dyslexia. But now, after she got to research and other institution, told her that is this intellectual, but he has to more do research. So she found out is dyslexia, because dyslexia is reading, decoding, reading, and writing, and delayed. So after the TV station called the Embryo Africa, I gave my life experience as a dyslexic child that time, and I moved on doing that. I started my own YouTube channel. It's called Prince Autism Kenya. Why? Because I advocate for other neurodivergent youth, but before it was Nicholas Dyslexic Advocate. That time I was advocating for dyslexia before I got other opportunity like Mr. Autism 2023. That opened a door to speak in a conference called ICON Conference, Autism Connect. I spoke there, give my full experience. If you like to see that story, you can check in my YouTube channel. If it is okay, you can open your phones, check Prince Autism Kenya. You see all the videos that I've done since I was 9 years. Changing a tire, showing other kids how to do the same to change a tire, or washing a car. Every video is in my YouTube channel. So afterwards, after I said, let me start doing my own organization. One is Prince Autism, but it's not a organization. Is Prince Autism. It's like a brand name. And afterwards, right now there's a foundation that I've already started. Yes, sorry about that. Foundation called the Neuroinclusion Youth Network Foundation. Now this one, it will help all the youths that from so they can get opportunity like this opportunity to speak, to connect them to other institutions so they can be helped, so they can grow themselves before other kids pull them down. So yeah, and when I'm 21 years old, and when I'm at KISA doing internship, and yeah, life is ups and downs. Up to now is ups and downs. Transition to work, to school. Actually, I got an opportunity to study in Strathmore. Strathmore has a course called Neurodivergent Intake course. They teach basic ICT and advanced. After you know the basic, you go to advanced. If you know the advanced, you go to advanced. So at least that opened the door to learn, exposing my mind, do other activities like golf or even music or swimming. So everybody here, if you have any kids with neurodevelopment, please expose them to all activities. It will explore, it can expand their minds to know other things. Yes, and I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicholas. So much in that short piece that you've told us about your journey right from childhood, the impact you're making, the support, and the mothers stay close. Both Brian and Nicholas
and
really carry on, Nicholas.
sorry. And also my mom, she's a single mom. You know how a single mom is really tough with one child, try to manage work and school, work and me. So yeah, I really appreciate she's not my mom, she's my manager, but well, I'm doing those advocacy things, it's my manager, but at home it's my mom. So I really appreciate for her. She did a lot. All the single mothers, I really salute you. You have done a lot of work, trust me. Yes. Thank you.
Yeah,
I
thank
think
you.
now I'm done.
Well put, Nicholas. The moms stay strong, they power through this journey. We've seen many people uplifted, the voices that stood true who fought through the stigma, who looked for avenues, who connected him to institutions. And he's highlighted a few institutions that provide alternate pathways. It keeps coming up, the limited access to education that is inclusive, the stigma and the discrimination, that remains a resounding theme that keeps coming across, the lack of accessible infrastructure, the limited access to healthcare. You heard Nicholas' story talking about even doctors who were discussing with his mother and speaking of ill and doom, not quite understanding the full breadth of learning difficulties, neurodevelopmental challenges, neurobehavioral concerns. So all these things we need to talk about, we need to put to the forefront. You need to ask yourself, how many inclusive schools are there in your school district, for example? How many neurorehabilitative experts do you know? How many are supposed to be there for your county or for your country? And at this point, we literally have two pediatric developmentalists, and that just tells us that the access, if you're meant to see these experts, they're quite lacking in terms of numbers. So the advocacy and the agitation also highlights the need, allows the people in leadership to see what needs to be done. So these stories are valuable. Keep talking. I like the power of the internet, and Nicholas is utilizing that to the max, as well as Brian as well. Forming disability groups themselves, because if nobody's going to pull you up, then you lift yourself up. So we like that there's a lot of disability focused organizations. There are still some government initiatives through the Kenya Institute of Special Education and the National Council of Persons with Disabilities. And also to remind you that the law was passed this year, the Disabilities Act. So familiarize yourself with that as well, because there's some valuable inputs and access points that can be availed to the rest of us, and there are points for us to highlight, and not forgetting the family and community support. Without further ado, I will proceed to our next speaker. Maria, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Kate, and how fortunate I am to come after incredible people and strong disability advocates, Brian and Nicholas. What caught me was listening to their stories. I thought we actually live out or have the same stories and are unified in strength, but also it is a very unfortunate and recurring systematic cycle for children with disabilities, as he also emphasized on its gate the limited access to healthcare, limited access to rehab, limited access to education, peer-to-peer, limited knowledge about disability, the overall, and it seems to be years of gaps over the years, but also an incredible resilience for children with disabilities on towards becoming adults. And my story, well, but I think first of all, my name is Moyanja. I was born with cerebral palsy. As many children with cerebral palsy are born in Kenya, Africa, it was caused by lack of oxygen during birth, caused by prolonged labor and medical negligence, which is also systematic in our healthcare and in our hospitals. But fortunately for able to be diagnosed at birth, and I was able to get the correct guidance in which treatment and started therapy at a very early age. And I'm a big believer in early intervention, and through that, I was able to start a foundation, Jeremiah Foundation, which simplifies the lives of children with cerebral palsy by providing a facilitated early intervention and support systems. I don't want to repeat the story of schools and assessments and all of that. But I just wanted to point out something in all of this is where we have perspectives and attitudes. And for me, I feel like attitudes are the biggest barriers for children with disabilities and persons with disability, both from our lived experience and even now our continuous work with families and children with disabilities. If we look at attitudes from the beginning, we see attitudes in a mother denying the child's disability, to the stigma around the child, to the stigma in therapy, or stigma going for therapy, attitudes in how we perceive the value of a child with a disability. And I remember for me, what changed everything was my family was able to both impart and take out value from me, and they were able to make sure I don't perceive myself only as a child with a cerebral palsy, but they were able to guide me to see who Maria is and who Maria can be, and the perspective led me to believing that I can be anything or I can do anything. With a story from my mother one day came and I was crying, why do I have cerebral palsy? And she asked me, why not? Who else would have cerebral palsy? So when they were able to give me the correct perspective of having a disability and dealing with a disability, the lens changed for me, coming from a point of survivor, because having cerebral palsy in Kenya is pure survival, and navigating other challenges into getting to a place where I'm living and I'm enjoying life, and socially active, and I'm participating in everything because I'm able to carry the same perspective into the society. And Brian mentioned something, the society is the one which notices that we have a disability. And it's true because I don't get to remember I have cerebral palsy until someone starts or someone finds or I talk and they look back. So our attitude even in the society to be able to understand that people with disabilities are human beings first, and then to be able to recognize them as social values or to recognize their contribution in the society, that is where they get to thrive in adulthood. And it's I'm coming to break it down in the terms of perspective, even in understanding that we need children with disabilities to become either semi-independent or independent, or to have some sort of fulfillment in their lives as they transition into adulthood, and to be able to understand that they are valuable, and in them being who they actually bring value to the society. So I'm just shouting very loud that we need a big attitude adjustment, and just to shift our perspectives around children with cerebral palsy and children with disabilities, and of course, in general, everyone with a disability. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria. I mean, you tackled so many points. You talked about your journey with cerebral palsy being survival through and through. You talked about persons with disabilities are human beings first before their disabilities. And so viewing them as valuable members of society who have a lot to contribute, who need to have meaningful life experiences. And that requires a radical change in attitude, a new understanding of the different roles our different abilities allow us to play in society. So you're talking about systemic concerns, the attitudes that influence how we treat one another, and more so how persons with disabilities are treated. The systemic concerns you've highlighted included access to healthcare, and that's good healthcare, not substandard healthcare, and the community supports, the government initiatives, the failings we have in educational initiatives as well, barriers to infrastructure. You really, really highlighted a lot. And we applaud everything that you're doing, Maria, taking a keen understanding into learning about cerebral palsy, starting an organization yourself, uplifting other children who may not even have some of the opportunities you have, and trying to make sure that you can guarantee a full life for everyone, disability or not. We applaud you so much, Maria. Without further ado, I will move to Dr. Nerima. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you so much for everyone who is on the call. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. I feel very privileged, but also I feel a bit intimidated speaking after such wonderful people who have gone through and managed to plow through the difficulties that come with raising children with disabilities. I am Dr. Caroline Nerima. I am a developmental pediatrician from Uganda. And I also speak in the capacity as a parent. So I'm coming in both, with both hearts, and sometimes the hearts just get mixed up, but do bear with me. I think that raising a child with developmental disabilities does a lot to teach you so many things, including empathy and patience for other children. So I have a teenage boy, and he's 13 years. And I'm very happy about this topic because it's talking about transition into adulthood. My son turned 13 yesterday, and we have entered the wonderful teen years that have come with wonderful transitions, and some of which are shocking. And for some reason, when you have a child like this, because your head is buried deep into troubleshooting about so many things, you forget about the fact that they are growing and they are developing. They're going through different secondary sexual development, and it's an issue. And it's not an issue, I mean, but it's something that you've got to talk about because the way they perceive things is interesting. So that's where I come from. A little background story about me. My boy has taught me a lot, and also I think he's the inspiration. I know he is the inspiration to, getting me to where I am. And I think I will not speak so much about access to care because all the speakers have mentioned access to care as a big challenge. And I think in Uganda particularly, it's probably a little more difficult than probably in Kenya. I'm not saying that Kenya is not having any challenges, but or in other Eastern African countries. But being like, for example, me being the only developmental pediatrician, sometimes it's daunting to we want to implement so many support services that as a person with a lived experience as a parent, you want to do so many things that you would have wanted to otherwise be done to you. But we live within a system, and sometimes those systems are very slow to change, and our children are growing and are transitioning into adults. And a funny backstory to this is that 2 days ago, I attended a meeting with the school director, and they mentioned to me that my son has a crush on 2 girls at the same time, and he has a type, a beautiful type. And it was funny because it's not, they had to sit him down because he was a bit, following the girls that he liked everywhere they went and telling them they've got beautiful fingers and telling them they've got beautiful faces, which any other, 13-year-old would probably do or would probably be shy. But it's the fact that I love the fact that in his school, which is a mainstream inclusive school, the children who are developing typically are aware of these children. And she, this lady mentioned to the director, I don't mind him, I like him, but I wish he would stop following me around. And so they had to sit him down to tell him about, you don't follow around everybody you like. And it's hard for him to understand why he shouldn't. I mean, I like you, why shouldn't I just follow you everywhere? So one of the things that I think is important in the discussion for transition is reproductive and sexual and reproductive health. These are very key topics for our children. And sometimes I think striking the balance between helping the child to understand and helping the child not to get in trouble, but also acknowledging that the child has got these feelings sometimes is hard. And getting the child to understand the norms of society, especially as regards the opposite sex, when they're interested, is a bit tough. And but I think that these topics cannot be shied away from. So in the education system, and I think this brings me to a second point about the education system, which everybody has spoken about, but I think I'll talk about it because our children do not grow in hospitals; they grow in the schools. They spend most of their times in the school. So the education must be just beyond formal schooling, but must include life schooling. If you know what I'm talking about, schooling about teaching them about things about life. How do you buy something from a shop? We live in a busy world right now, and many of our parents are not stay-home parents. And even when we want to stay home, we can't afford to stay home because the amount of money that is required to pay for all the extra services that our children require, someone has got to pay for those bills. So we both have got to work. Therefore, I think the schools we request that the schools feed in that gap and teach our children about life. Because, I'm so happy that Nicholas, I'm hoping I got your name right, is going to Strathmore. I'm very proud of you, Nicholas. I'm very happy and that you've gotten this far. And that's a big question on many of our parents' minds. Now I speak as a healthcare worker as well. What is the next step? That's the question I always have in my clinical room. What is the next step for my child? What should I do? And so I think the education needs to fill in that gap to skill our children beyond just the need for formal schooling. And for those, even those who are able to handle the mainstream curriculum, I think that the education system needs to evolve, because not every subject is important. If you think about it in the grand scheme of things, learning about Napoleon Bonaparte in history is nice to know, but is it important when this child has got to learn, for example, how to buy himself stuff from the shop? You understand what I'm saying? It may be good, he may be able to regurgitate this information, but is it important for his life? So I think that the education system really needs a think through about what is relevant, even when the child has the ability to retain this information. Is it important and is it relevant to his life? And in addition to that, both the education and the health systems need to have a life course approach to everything. You know, from transition from childhood, the needs evolve from early childhood to middle school to teenage, and then to young adulthood and adulthood. I'm very glad again that Nicholas's mom is on the call. It shows that our support for these children doesn't end even when they're able to speak and to do lots of things. They do need support in many ways. Support at, you know, to be the best that they can be, and also to protect them sometimes. So everyone who's caring for children with disabilities, developmental disabilities, must have a life course approach. It's not like a malaria where you treat and you're done. So that's one of the things that I think that could help as families, could help us families, is every time I come into contact with you as a health worker, for example, you must preempt some of these conversations. How old is he? What's the next step? Have you had these discussions about sexual health? Have you had these discussions about hygiene? Have you had the discussions about the adaptive skills that are very important, that even when a student has completed university but has very limited adaptive skills, still life will be very challenging for them? And really looking into a strength-based approach. I think, I don't know if Doc, I have much more time. Please let me know if I'm going beyond. The last point I'd like to talk about, again, which has been spoken about by the other speakers, is limited access to interventional and identification, interventional services and identification, early identification. And I think this cuts across all African settings. And so I think we need to be a bit innovative in how we allow for children to be identified early. And we could use very many avenues that would be able to quickly pick out a child. We may not have a conclusive diagnosis, but at least allow a channel to intervention at the level at which the child is at, because I cannot, like every child, every gentleman and lady on this call before me has spoken, intervention is the key, is like magic. And so I think that we need to be innovative as Africa. We cannot afford to have the resources. We don't have the resources that the Western world has, but we do have a lot of other opportunities that we can explore to increase access to intervention and early identification. Thank you very much. I think I'll stop here and allow other speakers to come on.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nerima. She wears two hats. She's a developmentalist, that's a pediatric developmental expert, as well as a mommy to a now teen boy with developmental concerns, but you can see she's navigating it quite well. Wondering about, what do we do about things like sexual health and reproductive health? Who are the experts there? Where do we get the guidance from? And as you can see, these discussions are championed by the parents. And that tells you it's actually the parents doing all the heavy lifting, because the resources for information, for example, are also not there. We don't have resource specifics that are appropriate for our cultural settings. We have additional considerations, things like circumcision. These are all things that are part of our everyday lives in Africa that you cannot find a textbook from Sweden that discusses that. You cannot find a clinician from Sweden who can tell you how to navigate that discussion with a family. Yet these are the things that parents are facing on a daily. Parents are dealing with support structure issues. They're having to form organizations by themselves. They're pushing for policy by trying to engage with these policy makers with leadership. So this work really is very visible. It really isn't just the problem or the concern, or shouldn't be just the concern of parents. It should be all our concerns. We should all be invested, because Maria said persons with disabilities are human beings first. And anything that affects your fellow human being is really about all of us. We learned that through COVID. So this visibility is excellent. Let's have these discussions. Let's champion other people's rights. Even if you don't have the personal concern, we've seen visible disabilities. We've seen quote unquote visible, invisible disabilities. You've seen Brian, you've seen Nicholas, you've seen Maria, and they all don't look the same. Their journeys are all very different, but underlying their stories are common threads. And it's the same concerns that keep coming up. It is, where is the community? Where is the support? Where is the net that holds the parents? Where are the disability focused organizations? Where are the government initiatives? Where are the points of involvement? Where is the education? Where is the access for infrastructure, for avoiding stigma? Where are the discussions? Where is the move for inclusion? These are the things that are being highlighted in this talk. We had one other guest, Mr. Mawa. I'm not sure if Perpetua is on the call because we're actually about 10 minutes out. I don't yet see questions on the chat.
Apologies, he's not yet online. He might be experiencing some network challenges.
All righty. I see a lot of kudos to all the presenters about their personal journeys, everybody literally marveling at just the work that the individuals are doing in their little spheres of influence that have big impact. Maria, who talks about a lot of system-wide concerns, macroeconomic, high-level things that trickle down to her day-to-day life experiences from childhood into her adulthood. And you can see that she's come this far, that she's challenging the status quo. She's talking about interventions from leadership. Great stuff from everyone. I don't know if there are any points that need to be discussed with the individual panelists. Perpetua, you can guide me with that.
Currently, there are no questions specifically to the panelists in the chat box. However, if there are 2 or 3 questions, maybe someone can raise their hands, and then Kate, you'll pick who you will want to go first. We can have 2 to 3 questions.
There is a question addressed to Brian on how he navigates even the accessibility and reach for sharing his artwork, and maybe how that then supports him or how that builds him back or allows him some form of earnings. Brian.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much. I've been following the conversation and the stories are very inspiring. And also, thank you for that question on how I navigate sharing my artwork. Yes, so first of all, if I can just give you a snippet of how I started my art journey. Long ago, we used to live with a cousin when I was a young kid, and I used to snatch my cousin's pen and start scribbling things down with my leg. So from then on, I continued. And so in class, in school, when we were given diagrams, I used to draw diagrams in an artistic manner. So for example, if we were given a fish to draw, I used to draw a fish like an artist, where I know where the light is coming from, that and that and that. So for me, it's passion which started a long time ago. And I can say, I thank God for social media because I shoot my videos and sometimes I demonstrate on how I do the art. I do pencil and I do paint. So I thank God for social media because I usually take some small videos and post of how I do that with my feet. Yes, the journey of art has not been easy. This is because art has not yet been appreciated. And what do I mean? I mean, some people still don't see the value of art. And it's so unfortunate because for me, if I give my practical life example, I draw with the feet. And sometimes I happen to quote a price to someone. I tell them this and this, and I am also accountable why that price is coming, that it's coming. So they'll start to argue, oh, that much. So at the end of the day, you find some clients and sometimes you lose some clients. So I still feel art has not yet been appreciated. However, I'm still pushing concerning it. When I get customers, I appreciate and I keep on moving. So I navigate art by drawing with my feet and posting videos online so that people can see it. And for potential buyers, I usually appreciate them coming and buying from me. And I'm called Sami Brayo probably for those who want to see how I do this art on my social media platforms. I just hope I've answered the question.
Very much so, very much so. The power of online resources, digital options, you're using every single available avenue to get your work out there, and that is excellent. We really appreciate that. Thank you so much. There is another question to Dr. Nerima. At teenage, is it better to have a support teacher of the same gender for the child? This is referring to the primary support teacher. That is a question from Alison Kabara Kirinya.
Okay, thank you so much, Alison, for that question. I'll share my personal experience to begin with. My son had a personal assistant or a personal teacher for the most part until we joined a school with these services availed through. He was mostly in mainstream school because of where we lived. We had no access to special ed classes, so he had a teacher. She's a lady, is still a lady. And he also had an occupational therapist who was male. And I noticed that he had a lot more, he was more cooperative with the male. I don't know whether sometimes they just take advantage of female soft side. Eventually, with the teacher, their personal assistant, they did get on very well, but she's got to be very firm. Now that he's a teenager and he's in a school with full support, so like a full service school, I noticed that he wants to identify with the males more, even though he has, obvious crushes. And I feel like the state at which he's at, he'd listen more to a male. And I think it has something to do with the transition with teenagers, in the whole developmental theory, they tend to want somebody to look up to. And I think having an assistant, well, to begin with, an assistant has to be skilled, female or male. But I think as a teenager, in my opinion, from my personal experience, having a male who is farmer, a bit firm, males are known to be firm and can get him to do things and have more energy, because as they grow older, they're a bit more energetic. So they can't, they need more people to run around. And sometimes females, sometimes we may not be as agile. I'm not saying all, but sometimes. And so they need a male. I think that a male hand is important at this stage in his life. So personal opinion, probably the same gender. And I think for females, I don't, of course, have a daughter, but I think for females, also for purposes of child protection, although abuse can happen with any gender, I'm not saying that it can't, but I think it's a bit sensitive when it comes to having an opposite, gender at the teenage stage when they're exploring sexual feelings and exploring attractions, of course. So I think having the same gender may not be 100%, but it may be better. I don't know what the other parents of the group think, but that's my personal experience. I think right now my son is at a stage when he listens to males a bit more, maybe, because he tests me a lot. I don't know whether I'm a female, but he does test me. So yeah, I don't know if I've answered your question.
Thank you. That is the formula that works in your house. And I think other people are looking for pointers on what is culturally sensitive, what is situationally appropriate. Those are some of the challenges. We don't really have strict guidelines or a formula, but I think your inputs have been very insightful in terms of a figure that one can model or be a role model to children. And those are needs that all children have, not just children with disabilities. So we have to anticipate that and believe that they also look at themselves as mirror images of their societies and wanting to partake and participate while looking to the people before them, the adults around them. And so it makes sense that your son would be more interested in having a male figure as a teacher or a guide, and that is excellent. I think for time, and Dr. Nerima, you've been thanked by Alison Kabara, so I think she's gotten a lot of assistance from you. Just to wrap it up, we've come to the close of this fantastic, beautiful discussion, and we're talking about finding support, finding ways to allow children and persons with disabilities to have healthy transitions and to gain the local supports through disability organizations. all right? And as it stands, it appears that most disability organizations are actually formed by persons with disabilities. Let's start to have that attitude shift that Maria talked about, where it's not just a problem for one group of people. All of us should be interested in forming these organizations, engaging with leadership, attend that chief baraza, attend that amendment committee meeting that wants to increase the slots allotted for persons with disability in leadership. Look into online resources and digital options. Use every avenue available to you. Engage with the community through self-help groups, community-based rehab organizations. Improve or increase accessibility in education, in employment, in your places of work. Allocate certain slots, the same way Strathmore has a neurodisability quota for some students. Push for that in your little spheres of influence, in your schools, in your institution, in your places of work, to enable persons with disabilities to participate. Promote inclusive policies, right, and programs that support the rights and needs of persons with disabilities. And that would also help break down the barriers. Strengthen support services such as healthcare, to enable persons with disabilities to access the support they need. But it also means you must understand their needs, get to know them, listen to their advocacy stories in terms of empowering persons with disabilities to get their voices heard. Allow and permit those platforms. Don't put children with disabilities on the back burner or on the side. Put them front and center. Encourage them to take up space, to be heard in whatever way or form that they need to be present and heard. Engage with multiple stakeholders as well, whether it's policymakers, leadership, advocacy groups, communities at large, people who need more information, give it to them. Connect with certain groups. The Eastern African Academy is one such group. There are many other organizations that are championing these rights. So this is my call and all our calls to everyone on this call. And I hope that in listening and sharing the stories that you've been touched in some ways and inspired from the wonderful lived experiences of our panelists. Thank you so much for your time. It's now 2 minutes past. Unless Perpetua has something to add, we've put a call for joining the Eastern African Academy of Childhood Disability. As you can see, there is an email there to use if you want to join and be part of our membership. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I have nothing much to add. It was such a beautiful session. I would give it the mic to Dr. Susan to close for us.
So I just want to thank you so much, the panelists, for the young adults who have inspired us from the amazing work that they're doing, for Dr. Nerima for wearing both hats as a caregiver and a developmental pediatrician, and really all the ideas that were shared. And thank you, Dr. Kate, for moderating and perpetuating in the back end. And so we really want to celebrate our young people with disabilities who are sharing the amazing work and support that they got from their caregivers, their mothers, their fathers, their grandparents, their aunties. In the African setting, support is by the entire village. And so as a village, we will continue to champion for the rights of children and young adults with disabilities as they transition. We want to have a place that the workplace and the workforce is ready to accommodate them, and the supports that are needed, the government policies. Again, we celebrate the disability acts that are being passed in the continent to ensure that there is room and space to where our children grow up to. So I thank you to all the participants again for joining in. I thank the panelists again for the amazing conversations and for the bravery to share your journey so that some other people can reflect and think about how they can support their children. And the ideas really shared by everyone, even in the chats. We thank you so much, and bravo to our young adults who shared their work. Thank you very much, and have a lovely evening.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Dr. Laigong, we just completed the meeting. But thank you for joining. All right, good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.